Hello friends, welcome once again to Look and Live. You are here with Pastor James Devallon. In this reaction video, I have for you on my screen here, Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson has a really good message that we're all going to listen to. For those of you who don't know, Jordan Peterson is one of those intellectuals, philosopher, I will say, very intelligent. I don't see things the way he does spiritually. He is somewhat humanistic in his approach. But nevertheless, there's a lot of substance, a lot of wisdom there that we can learn from. I will certainly recommend Jordan Peterson at all time because he does make a lot of sense. Before we get into this video, make sure you like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon as well for more of my notification upload. Without further ado, friends, let's now get into the heart of the message.
Listen to them. Have you all noticed that food has become much more expensive? That shelter has become much more expensive? That energy is more expensive? That many consumer goods are simply unavailable? Can you not see that this is going to get worse if the Deloitte-style moralists have their way?
True.
How much short-term pain are you going to be required to sustain? Decades worth? All your life and the life of your children? It's very likely for your own benefit. Remember that. And all this painful privation is not only not going to save the planet, it's going to make it far worse. I worked for a UN subcommittee that helped prepare the 2012 report to the Secretary General on Sustainable Development. Whether or not it was a good idea to contribute to such a thing is a separate issue. I do believe, at least, that the report would have been much more harmful than it was without the input of the Canadian contingent. We scrubbed away several layers of globalist utopianism and Cold War era conceptualization and cynicism. That was something. I garnered a key and crucial insight from the several years' work devoted to my contribution. I learned that the fastest and most certain pathway forward to the future we all want and need, peaceful, prosperous, beautiful, is through the economic elevation of the absolutely poor. Richer people care about the environment, which is, after all that is outside the primary and fundamental concern of those desperate for their next meal. Make the poor rich, and the planet will improve, or at least get out of their way while they try to make themselves rich.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, I'm gonna let him continue here. I wanted to highlight that's actually a really good point he made here. Some rich will have an issue with this, but truly that could be part of the solution to all the concerns that we are hearing concerning climate change, because a lot of what is being done to the climate primarily comes from the rich, but also it is the poor, the lower class. So yeah, but those who are determined to consolidate all the all the money of the world within one particular class, they can never actually properly address the issues of our climate. Although I have a different perspective as far as what that answer actually is. But nevertheless, being part of the conversation, I try to understand various perspectives. When the rich oppress the poor, it actually spills over onto the rich. They end up doing more harms to themselves in the long run. That's just what it is.
Poor poorer, and this is the concrete plan, remember, and things will get worse, perhaps worse beyond imagining. Observe the chaos in Sri Lanka,
Yeah,
if you need proof.
true.
There are clearly more important priorities than costly and ineffective emergency climate change reductions. Bjorn Lomborg's work, among others, such as Marion Tupy and Matt Ridley, has demonstrated that other pressing problems could and should take political and economic priority from the perspective of good done per dollar spent. Money could and should be spent, for example, to ensure the current health and therefore future productivity and environmental stewardship
True.
of currently poor children in developing countries, for example. How about attending to remediation of the actual world of pain and deprivation of such children, rather than saving the hypothetical world and the hypothetical world of future children in abstraction? Stirrings of revolt. Citizens are waking up to this. Dutch farmers and fishermen are rising up. Canadian truckers are pushing back.
True.
And such protests are spreading and increasing in intensity, as they should. Why? Because Deloitte consultants and like-minded centralists are pushing things too far. It will not produce the results they are hypothetically intending.
No.
This agenda, justified by emergency, will instead make everyone poorer, particularly those who are already poor. This use of emergency force will instead make the lives of the working men upon whom we all depend for our daily bread and shelter more difficult and less rewarding.
That's
Finally,
also true. That is also true. And when you do get into the heart of the climate change advocate supposed proposal or whatever plans they have, when you really clearly examine like the nature of some of the stuff they're talking about, it is only going to hurt the poor and prosper the rich. And many poor are gonna starve to death, and it's already impacting somewhat of the crops. It's impacting the world as a whole. These so-called supposed changes to lower gas emission and to rely on these other alternative means of supposedly energy, it also pushes us into the hands of our enemies, right? We will call Vladimir Putin and the Russians and China and so on, when they are the strongest economically with the backing to provide supposedly these alternative energy means of survival to the world. So if we go with this climate supposed movement, right? We don't have uranium. We don't have the different solar panels we don't even have the good ones. So we have to rely on these countries that are actually don't really care so much when it comes to the climate movement. So we're going to play right into their hands. And on top of that, many of the poor are going to become poorer as a result. And many of them will be left to starve to death. They're going to be frozen to death, especially when they can't heat their home. They can't eat proper food. It's just that this is a recipe for disaster, you know. And again, I'm still very much disturbed, should I say, by the idea some men think they can save the planet from destruction or disaster. I'm still a little bit disturbed by that. It sounds very I don't know what you would refer to that. Is that, are we playing God to an extent here? Because while I do believe there are things we can do to lessen the impact and the precedence of climate change, but we got to be careful that we don't step into God's position to a place where we start dictating what should be and what shouldn't. And when you listen to the WEF, some of their things they're talking about, they do act as if they are gods, that they are dictating what can be bought, who should be done this, and how the money's supposed to be controlled. It's just that that's the stuff that I have an issue with, not particularly the solution that they're looking to impose upon the problem. It's just that they begin to trample on other people's conscience. They begin to almost stick their hands in your pocket. They want to know what you're buying, where you're buying, how you're using it, what are your supposed footprint or climate footprint, digital footprint, and so on. They are getting really into your personal life to the point where they get to dictate about every aspect of your life. That just makes me very, very uncomfortable. And, that's what I'm looking at as he's speaking about some of this.
This use of emergency force will also make the environment worse, not better.
True.
Why? If you wreak your temporary economic havoc to eventually remediate the world, those whom you sacrifice so casually in the attempt will descend into chaos.
Yep.
In that chaos, they will then, by necessity, turn their attention to matters of immediate survival.
True.
And in a manner that will stress and harm the complex ecosystems and economies that can only be maintained with the long-term view that prosperity and nothing else makes possible.
Yeah.
Critics of my view will say, we have to accept limits to growth. Fine. Accept them. Personally, abandon your position of planet-devouring wealthy privilege. Join an ascetic order. Graze with the cattle.
Yeah.
Or if that's too much, and it probably is, then purchase an electric car if you want one, but no diesel-powered emergency backup vehicle or electric power generator for you. Buy some stock in Tesla. That's probably the best bet on that front. But you don't approve of the likes of Elon Musk, do you? Stop flying. Stop driving, for that matter. Get on your bike instead in your three-piece business suit in the winter, if you dare.
They're not willing to make this change. And to top it off, a lot of those climate advocate individuals, I should say, that are pushing for this, they are funding wars such as the one in Ukraine, and a lot of the military weaponry and arsenals and plane and strike that they have. These things do more harms to the climate than the activity of the common people of the community. So it's like they are ignoring a lot of other factors here. And it does make you wonder, like, do they take into consideration, like, there's a lot more happening here than just some people. And the issue that I have with some of this is how widely they are willing to they ignore the one of the most essential factor for the climate issue. They ignore that one essential factor, which I will tell you at the end of this video. Let's continue.
I'll splash you with icy and salty slush as I drive by in my evil but warm Ford Bronco SUV and help you derive the consequent delicate pleasure of your own narcissistic martyrdom. Save the planet with your own choices. But quit demanding that the rest of us blindly follow your diktats. Quit demonizing and castigating us merely because we don't just happily cede to you all the extant power. We're not evil just because we don't believe that you are omniscient. We're not
evil just because we don't believe you are omniscient. You know what's going to happen with this climate change things? I'm going to let you know. No matter what they put together, it is not going to solve this issue. It's not going to solve it. Okay? And it's going to shock a lot of people. The big question is going to be, how come? Why? And it's because they have rejected a particular issue that lays at the foundation of all of this. They're not acknowledging that problem. And that's the problem that should be talked about. But oftentimes, we want to stay away from that problem. And I'm going to tell you what it is in a minute. But let's keep going.
Evil. Just because we don't want you to assume omnipotence and omnipresence too. There is simply no pathway forward to the green and equitable utopia that necessitates the further impoverishment of the already poor, the compulsion of the working class, or the sacrifice of economic security and opportunity on the food, energy, and housing front. There is simply no pathway forward to the global utopia you hypothetically value that is dependent on force. No. And even if there was, what gives you the right to enforce your demands on other sovereign citizens equal in value to you?
Yep. Good question.
An alternative solution. A better way forward would be to prioritize the problems that beset all of us on this still green, functional, and increasingly abundant planet, with the requisite focus and attention demanded of a true political class elected by the people, capable of and willing to look at everything, trying to fix where necessary, trying to maintain as much freedom and autonomy as possible, and stop simply capitalizing narcissistically on the mere appearance of action, knowledge, and virtue. We should obtain true cooperative consent from those affected. Farmers, truckers, working class people, who have turned in irritated desperation to figures such as Trump. And work with them rather than forbidding them with your power or improving them.
That's true.
So they will be finally worthy of your time and attention. Help replace dirty energy with clean if you must, but do it on your own dime. And make.
I love that. I love this. And again, this is very insightful and intuitive. This is actually an appeal to those elitists who hopefully they pay attention to the nature of this message. Is that in the process of you trying to fix the climate change that you believe is such a big problem, which I take a different position when it comes to that, but I'll save that for another video. But the thing is, in the process of you doing that, you end up stripping other people of their right to live. You end up stripping and also get into their financial mean. In the process of doing that, you end up hurting so many people around you. But think about it this way. You believe this climate is such a big issue, but most of them live as if they don't believe of the very thing that they preach. So it's like there's a level of hypocrisy, confusion, and dominance. It's almost like this, like they say, they let a good crisis go to waste. This is one of those crises that is now being used and abused for control. It's just what it is. And the powers that be wants control, and they're looking to get it by any means necessary. So under the auspices of climate change, which is now the problem, which now disarm the population, because we see there are many things happening in the world that are very, very concerning, and as we should be. And if you want to know what I think of climate change, read Matthew 24. You want to know what I think of climate change? Read Luke 17, Luke 21, Luke, and also Mark 16. That's what I think. Okay. So that is what I see, and this is what they see, and this is how they're going about solving the problem. But what I'm thinking is happening here, what many are not realizing, a much bigger problem is about to explode. It's a much bigger, and I don't think the vast majority are not ready for this. Let him finish so we can bring this thing to an end.
That the results are cheap and plentiful if you want to help the poor and the planet. The warning bells are ringing. Listen to them before they turn into sirens. We will not advance without resistance through the straits of your enforced privation. We will not allow you to steal and destroy the energy that makes our lives bearable and that produces our food and shelter and housing and the sporadic delights of modern life, just to address your existential terror, particularly when it will fail to do so in any case.
It will.
We will not allow our children to be criticized first for having the temerity to merely exist.
But you know, what's going to happen here, Jordan, is that what they have to do is to create a much bigger threat, a much bigger enemy that will create fear and disarm the population. It's a very effective method, you know, with C-19. Look how they did it, right? We had this thing. We're still talking about where it came from. This invisible enemy, this virus. And then we hear the media and we were told the solution is this. And now here we are, 2022. And we're looking at, oh, there was a lot of deception in here. Oh, there was a lot of misinformation. Oh, how many videos got struck on YouTube for telling the truth? And I wonder if what was done with Pestilence 19, you know what I mean, could be another model used again under the headship of climate change. So in the process of us saying, we're trying to fix the climate for these and that reason, we need a fear-mongering method, just as was with Pestilence 19, so that the people could, whatever, do what you need to do. Save me from this great danger. So in the process of you trying to supposedly save me, I lose more of my rights, I lose myself, I lose my conscience, I lose my money, I lose my freedom, I lose even my religious freedom in the name of salvation, in the name of you saving me from the climate disaster. And I can smell it, friends. It's exactly where this thing is going. In the name of saving the planet, many of us are going to be stripped of our conscience, personal freedom, of our liberty, and the powers that be will step into a place of dominance, control, where your say, your desire, your will be constrained to their goals. And if you dare to step out of line, they might treat you like Kyrie Irving, you know? I'm just saying. I can smell this, man. And let's bring this to an end.
And then, deprived of the prosperous and opportunity-rich future we strived so hard to prepare for them, we remain unconvinced that your frightened and self-congratulatory moralizing and intellectual pretension, ignorance of the limits of statistics, and misuse of arithmetic.
I agree.
We do not believe.
There are so many other scientists who has come out and showed there is a very much different in the way that the metrics are being read, or even in the way that they're being calculated. They are saying, based on these numbers, that which these people are advocating are incorrect. And what happens to them? Hey, what always happens? Shut up. be quiet, go sit down, strike him. You can't speak on this matter. Very much similar to the treatment of, Pestilence 19. How dare you say this medicine works for this virus? You can't speak about that. How dare you speak against our supposed solution? How dare you? How could you say like we are wrong? And now they're saying we want some amnesty because we were wrong on many issues. Look at the mental health today of many youths. Look at the level of suicidal rate, how much that has skyrocketed. It's not like we didn't know. It's not like experts didn't come out and say, by the way, if you do this, this is going to result in these issues. You need to be quiet. Don't talk about this. Well, here we are today, reaping the consequences. And now, I think the same method that worked for Pestilence 19 are going to be used again. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are going to buy into it. I have to admit, people have already bought into it. They're throwing soups on on paintings and everything. They're going out in a Greta Thunberg spirit in the name of trying to save the planet. I mean, come on, look at it. And don't you hear what the politicians are saying? It's like climate change is on the voting box. We had Mr. Pope Francis, joint session of Congress 2014, preaching to political leaders of how to enforce his so-called Laudato Si climate change solution. We had that. We welcome all of that. And then some. So guess what? The foundation has been laid. And you and I need to pay attention because we are in for another serious trouble. While we're having the discussion, I'm telling you, friends, you keep on telling people this climate change. Everything is as a result of this climate situation. Eventually, people believe that and they live their life in accordance with that perspective, and they start making decisions in that way. And as a result, things just go crazy.
Finally, and most absolutely, that your declared emergency and the panic you sow because of it means that you should now be ceded all necessary authority. So, leave us alone, you centralizers of power. You worshippers of Gaia, you sacrificers of the wealth and property of others, you would-be planetary saviors, you Machiavellian pretenders and virtue signalers, objecting to power, all the while you gathered around you madly. Leave us alone, to prosper or not, as a result of our own choices, as a result of our own actions, in the exercise of our own requisite and irreducible responsibility. Leave us alone.
Leave us alone.
Or reap the whirlwind and watch the terrible destruction of what you purport to save in consequence.
That was powerful. That was powerful. Man, that was well done. Jordan Peterson, again, on fire, as always. Never disappoints me. Much more could be said.
You cannot be serious! That ball was...
I'm sorry. I cannot add. I'm not going to add to that. I'm just going to read my Bible, okay? He said everything that needs to be said in this video is long enough. Let's end it. Isaiah 8:11. Right? Look at verse 12. Say you not a confederacy, all them to whom this people shall say, a confederacy. Now, we can talk about this all day. Now, listen to this. Neither fear ye their fear. So this confederacy is motivated by fear. So don't say what they're saying. Don't join this supposed confederacy. According to scripture, it tells you do not fear their fear. What does the Bible says? Sanctify the Lord himself, the Lord of hosts himself. Let him be your fear. Let him be your dread. And the idea is like they are confederating for these particular reasons that are motivated by fear. And God says, don't let that be your fear. Even in the book of, I believe it's in the book of Luke, where it says that men's heart will be failing them for fear. So when you go to the book of Luke, you find this passage, let me see if I could find it. I think it's Luke 17, where it speaks of how people are gonna be so afraid of the condition of the planet, and they will their hearts will fail them for fear. Let me find that for you. 21, Luke 21, instead of Luke 21, we're gonna look at verse 26. So let's go to our Bible once again. You hang on tight. Luke 21. I'm not used to using this Bible. The other one that I'm used to is like 1, 2, 3, and I'm there. But this one, it's a little bit wild. Anyway, Luke 21, 26. Finally, here we are. He says this, right? Talking about, look at the connection. There shall be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexities. You see this? You got the signs, right? These are signs. They call them climate change. And I said earlier, the issue behind the climate change are two major things. The sin that is in the world, sin, S-I-N, yes. And the second thing are signs. So you have sins and signs. So sin creates these issues that we see even impacting the climate. It's not just how people are using the resources. That's part of the problem, but that's not the problem. The problem is sin, is evil. That is one of the thing. And with sin comes the devil, of course, who also has power over the Bible says the air, right? He has power over the climate. Read the book of Job and how Satan was able to do and create and bring disaster in Job's life. Look, read that. So Satan has a level of dominance in the activities of the climate as well. And third is what I will refer to as signs of the times that are happening. But look what the nations are doing. They are in serious distress. The nations are distressed with perplexities. In other words, they don't even know what to do with themselves. They don't know how to solve it. So even the supposed solution to climate change is a perplexed situation. It's not really going to work. In the long run, it's gonna fail. Even irrespective of what all these scientists are saying, let me tell you, they're gonna fail. Look what it says: men's hearts failing them for fear. That's their problem again. That's why Isaiah says, let God be your fear, let God be your dread, because they're gonna be afraid and they're gonna make decision in accordance with their fear, not based on facts, not based on faith, not based on hope. Rather, they make decisions because from their perspective, this is the only thing they have left to this world. This is it. So to not live in that fear, they don't know how to do that. It takes faith to understand beyond my circumstances, God has something better in store for me. While I may suffer in this world, the Bible promises, it tells us in the book of John 16, I believe it's verse 33. It says, my little children, these things I write unto you, for in this world, you're going to have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So we are promised trouble in a sinful world. We are promised trouble in a world where the devil has dominion. The Bible tells us in Revelation 12, verse 12, that he's come unto us having great wrath, the dragon, because he knows that he has but a short time. So Satan is actively working in the power of the air, bringing about these disasters. And those who are interpreting that as climate change, instead of seeing the signs of the times and how sins and how evil is operating through those means, they're looking at all that and they're misinterpreting that. They call it climate change in the hope of trying to solve the supposed problem. They end up creating a much bigger problem in the long run, which is for another video. Because this stuff, you got to pay attention to this, because soon and very soon, that stuff is going to be knocking at your door and you're going to have some decisions to make. But I'll end it right here. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page. click the bell icon for more. I really enjoy Jordan Peterson. Helps me to kind of galvanize my thoughts here on many issues. Very balanced, and I like the way he calls these elitists out in the open and rightfully rebuke them of their narcissistic approach to supposed solving problems, where in their motive they are really out looking for ways to dominate, and you can see right through that. So this is where I stand. Talk below. Let's comment below. Let me hear what your thought and perspective is on this. Until next time, and as always, remember to look unto Jesus, to live by faith. Have a good one. Bye.